All right, everyone, this could be a game changer within the Democratic primaries in one direction or the other. It'll be interesting to see what happens because there's the latest Move On poll, which isn't the most reliable firm, has Elizabeth Warren gaining a lot of steam. Well, I believe in a strong second place showing at the moment near Biden. Elizabeth Warren the other day came out and called for the decriminalization of border crossings. The idea is that it would no longer be illegal specifically to jump the border itself. Like, you could be illegally in the country, but the border itself would basically no longer exist. So yeah, you have a mainline Democrat, arguably in second or third place in their primaries, calling openly for open borders. Yeah, the Democratic Party hasn't lurched off to the left. That's just a bunch of far right conspiracy theories and stuff. The Democrats are just totally sane, and that makes perfect sense. It'll be interesting because Julian Castro has also suggested this. She's the later tater on this one. Once again, Elizabeth Warren has glommed onto what she feels will be a good idea for campaign purposes. Can I please tell the actual leftists something? And some of them won't believe it because they're already on board with her. Elizabeth Warren will tell you exactly what you want to hear to try to become the nominee because she is a corporate candidate. She was never a standard-bearing progressive 10 years ago or anything like that. She was just sort of a wishy-washy liberal, just a standard Biden-style neoliberal, maybe a little further, maybe a Feinstein sort of category. But she's a corporate candidate. She's also got so much baggage and so many problems that it would be very interesting to see if she didn't get basically destroyed in just one debate with Trump with no possibility of recovery. And I'll tell you why. The first problem is the ever-present she lied about her ethnicity problem. If you're a white urbanite liberal or something, like a Starbucks Marxist kid who has one black friend sort of crowd, you probably don't care about this as much, but I can tell you that some of the inner city and especially southwestern voters will care a great deal. It would be nonstop hype on that particular issue. Basically, the idea is, how can you trust her on anything? She spent decades lying about her race, and it will be used as an illustrative point by people on the right, especially with regards to immigration and similar issues. They'll say, look, she benefited from lying about her race. She did that on purpose to take advantage of liberal policies that differentially favor people who are non-white, or in an academic sense, non-Asian now, I suppose. And it'll be a winning point with a lot of voters. Meanwhile, in the Southwest, where there are a lot of Native American voters, look at Nevada's voting. Look at the demographics of a place like Nevada or New Mexico. Those are the two big ones. Or even a place like Arizona. Do you think that she's going to do well with voting blocks that are represented by groups that have universally condemned her on this? And second, look at how she speaks and debates and reacts to people when spoken to in anything other than a happy manner. Like when she's being, sort of like with Charlemagne the Man calling her the original Rachel Dolezal. What did she do? She froze up. She didn't know how to respond. If Trump brings this up on a debate stage, and I guarantee he will, what is she going to do? She'll probably have a pre-scripted answer that will sort of cover it up and say, well, everyone makes mistakes or something like that. He is going to figure out a way to get around that, to get around her explanation. She is going to freak. She will either become combative, which she sometimes does, or she will lock up and she won't know how to respond, and she will be reduced to a gibbering wreck. You will lose the election almost certainly if Elizabeth Warren is nominated. Now, as far as the border issue, this becomes another piece of baggage. This will look great for the primaries. As far as the Democratic primaries go, look, 20-30% of the party has glommed onto the far left ideals of the post-Sanders generation. They don't even think Sanders is far left enough. They think that he's a moderate now. So if Elizabeth Warren casts herself off as the only viable far left rhetorician within the field, because it's not going to be Beto O'Rourke. He's done for, basically. It's not going to be Julian Castro. It's not going to... Kamala Harris is having her own problems that we'll have to discuss. Elizabeth Warren could potentially supplant Sanders and become sort of the anti-Biden. She could run away with it, yeah. If she can hold on to Nevada anyway, that'll be the big litmus test for her in the first four. Going into Super Tuesday, I still think there's a 90% chance Biden will manage to eke it out, but there's clearly some malaise involved. But then again, there's malaise involved with all of the frontrunners. You've got Biden. Some people are like, well, he's too old. He might have cognitive problems at this point, which I happen to think he probably does, at least on a mild level. So Biden is ancient and a neoliberal. He can't get anyone excited. Who said, wow, this Biden speech is going to be like balls to the wall. It's going to be great. Yeah, we're going to the Biden rally, man. Let's bring the fucking kegger. It doesn't happen. Bernie Sanders is even older, and he's a socialist. I hate to tell you, but you may not have a problem with that term. If you're a Democrat, like a partisan, like a further left Democrat, you probably think socialist isn't a dirty word. What about all the independent voters? Most of them oppose it. Most of them think that is a bad thing. Bernie Sanders can get up in front of a crowd and try to explain it all he wants. He's had years to do that. He's never made headway. If anything, I think that the younger generations are becoming less receptive to that because, look, their parental generation, younger Gen X, older millennials now at this point, basically raised them on far leftism. They're starting to reject that sort of shit. Unfortunately, this brings its own complications. Just because they move to the right doesn't mean it's a good thing. And move to the right on the wrong issues, and it's certainly not. Wish they were more anti-tax. That would be a good thing. And then Elizabeth Warren has her baggage. Kamala Harris has her prosecutorial history and her Tupac lie. Among other things, she can get a little bit nasty on a debate stage too. She pulls it off better than Warren though for some reason. Like she comes off as more like basically just like sort of defending herself. Elizabeth Warren comes off as more acerbic for some reason. Just judging that. I know that's a subjective judgment. Buttigieg, he's dead in the water even though he's probably he's the only candidate who's viable polling wise, who I think personally could do fairly well against Trump. Like he'd have a chance of winning. And then you've got O'Rourke who rounds it out, Cory Booker, and they're dead in the water. Elizabeth Warren calling for literal open borders, like, hey, if you come across the border, it doesn't matter, we don't give a fuck, basically, is what she says. Isn't this something that, like, people on the right used to say the Democrats would call for this within a few years, and people said it was a conspiracy theory? No, that never happened. That's just like, you got a couple fringe people, they don't speak for the party, they don't speak for me, blah, blah. Look at Elizabeth Warren's polling numbers. Looks like a decent number of Democrats support the proposal, and probably others will latch onto it as well now that she said it. They don't want to be outdone. It's going to be difficult, though. Here's the problem. You have a really far-left Democratic Party with a growing, although minority bloc that is dedicated socialism/social democrat, which is socialist by a more family-friendly name. It's basically like calling poison the don't drink fluid or something like that. It's going to be hard because in order to win in the primaries, the Democrats have to try to win over the far left bloc. But then in the general, do you think that if Elizabeth Warren gets up in front, let's say she's nominated, gets up in front of a crowd in the general, she's debating Trump, giving a speech, whatever, and she says, well, we're going to throw open the borders, and we're going to raise taxes across the board, and we're going to ban the guns, and we're going to do, all of these far left policies. We're going to make it mandatory pink hair and Starbucks Day every Friday. Do you think that that's a winning strategy? She's going to be running against a money president who's probably going to be presiding over a decent economy with no major wars going on. And technically, no major domestic scandals. Look, the Democrats can talk all they want about Trump's taxes. The average independent voter doesn't give a jack shit. I don't give a fuck about Trump's taxes. I'm an independent voter myself. I lean left in some issues, gay rights, abortion, whatever. I lean environmentalism in some cases. I lean right on taxes and guns and certain other things. And I'm no fan of censorship, which supposedly makes me far right these days, but I like to think of it as a nonpartisan issue. But Elizabeth Warren, what she's going to offer me is, okay, so I pay more in taxes, the border is opened, I get disarmed, at least in part, and then she latches onto the new Green Deal, so cow farts are banned, no more air travel, I'll have to take like an aquatic train or something, or a train that levitates, I guess, across the Atlantic or something. I'm not even 100% sure, and by the way, I won't be, I'll have to get rid of the oil furnace because oil's banned now. I'll have to get my energy, I guess, from wood pellets or something. I'll have to install a wood stove. We're going to regress to the 1800s. This is seen as a sane sort of platform by some people within the Democratic Party, other than the Biden and Buttigieg coalition of moderates. The rest of them are all far left. It'll be interesting to see. What you need, in order for someone to beat Biden, you need a left-wing candidate like Warren or Sanders or something to break away from the pack, to break the strangle. It's like a three-way tie right now. You need one of those three or somebody else to break ahead of the pack significantly. Warren, it looks like, may be doing that. But, again, Is this a Ben Carson moment where she briefly rises up to 25-30, then recedes back down to a long term? Or is it more of a Rubio moment where she becomes a dedicated, strong tertiary candidate, or about even with Sanders, he becomes sort of the Ted Cruz of the race? Or does she supplant Biden and Biden begins to decline? We don't know yet. We're still quite some time out from even a debate, let alone any state voting results. At the end of the primaries, though, and this is Trump's other advantage, the Democrats will inevitably have beaten one another over the head severely. Biden's trying not to. He's trying to focus his campaign on Trump and say, well, we need to work together. Trust me, Joe, you're the front runner. People are going to start trying to nip at your ankles. And they're going to try to claw their way up your legs and get on your shoulders and shove you down into the mire. And it's going to be funny to watch it happen. Because if he even gets nominated, he's going to be so scandal-ridden, he's going to limp to the finish line to even enter the general election. Trump will be sitting there unopposed. He's going to smell like a rose, and it's going to be hilarious. That's about all. Peace out.